Speaking of Hamas, it has now said it has released all the hostage bodies that it can find. Not many, apparently. Only 9 bodies out of 28 corpses that were still in Gaza have been returned now to Israel. And we've seen the last couple of hostages that they've given back, including the final female hostage, Inbar Hayman and Mohammed al-Atroush. They were returned by Hamas. You know, I think it obviously doesn't surprise me. We're talking about a brutal terror organisation here, that they haven't kept what was meant to be part of their promise ahead of these peace negotiations. It is so disheartening, obviously, for those families who would have held out hope of being able to finally respectfully bury the bodies of their loved ones. But it also brings, I guess, more a likelihood of fighting to resume in Gaza if they cannot hold up their side of the bargain.
Well, Hamas have said that they need special equipment to be able to reach more bodies, of which Israel have come out and said that that's rubbish. I think for me, when they're not getting back the bodies, it still leaves that question of doubt within the families, and that's what I find really heartbreaking and we will discuss this later about the treatment of what the hostages have been facing while they were in Gaza. But if you were the family, you'd almost be holding on to that, what if my child is still alive and is just kept under the tunnels and has been mistaken to be one of these dead bodies? But as you said, Caroline, we are dealing with a terrorist organisation and they are just stuffing around now to try and keep this peace deal. Is just tinkering on the edge. You can just see that they're
one
really
of the bodies
pushing.
that they gave back was actually a Palestinian dressed up in an IDF uniform. I mean, it's sick what they're doing here. I don't believe them for one second that they can't retrieve these bodies. Maybe there will be some that are more difficult. There is a lot of destruction and rubble there, obviously. But what lies did they tell in the first place to get this deal?
And I think that's part of what it's about. It's psychological warfare. And they've just given back all of the live hostages. There was naturally extreme jubilation and excitement in Israel. But you're right, Jamie and Caroline, if you hold out those extra bodies and those corpses, it is a form of psychological warfare where people feel like, well, is this really over? Is this war really done? And the reality is, it's not. Israel is still at war with Hamas. They have a lot to go in the 20-point peace plan before there is truly peace. But the other thing we've seen coming out over the last day or so is hostages recounting just how brutally they were treated in captivity, from being starved, forced to dig their own graves, chained up in solitary confinement for 2 years. It's just barbaric. But then you have other people like Greta Thunberg, whose couple of nights in an Israeli jail were so traumatising and horrendous. In a tell-all interview with the Telegraph in the UK, she said, "They dragged me to the opposite side from where the others were sitting, and I had the flag around me the whole time. They hit and kicked me. There's a lot I don't remember. So much is happening at once. You're in shock, you're in pain, but you go into a state of trying to stay calm." I mean, come on. Come on. She was in there for what, a couple nights? The actual Israeli hostages were in there for 2 years in truly horrific conditions. Does she have no, and it's funny because she goes on to say that the prison guards had no empathy or humanity. Greta, where's your empathy and humanity for the actual hostages? If your experience in the jail of a democratic Western country was that bad, imagine how it is being in a tunnel underground that's controlled by a death cult. Probably a little worse.
Which she just can't even visualise what Israeli hostages would have been going through. As we saw when she posted on social media the Israeli hostage who was digging his own grave, and she put that up as a Palestinian hostage. And so she's just got absolutely no idea. And further within that article, she actually has the hide to say she was made to drink from a tap that was near a toilet, and her green frog hat was taken off and stomped on.
Well, you know, I don't want to make light of someone. If someone was abused in an Israeli prison like that, if she was kicked and pushed, that is not on. But I do not believe it for a second, because this is someone who has spouted Hamas propaganda from the start of this war. So I don't actually believe it. And when she flits between serious allegations that she was physically abused and then, oh, they made me wear a T-shirt with decolonization on it, and that is like on the same level of suffering, I find it very difficult
and that her hat
to
was
find anything.
On.
And her frog hat was stomped on.
But it's also not in Israel's interest to mistreat her, because that gives her exactly what she wants, which is the story of, oh, I was so oppressed. So why would they do that in the first place?
We saw how they were. She has no evidence of any of this, of course. There's no videos or any evidence, so I'll believe it when I see it, especially when it's coming from her. But we did see videos of how she was treated the first time on the first journey over, on the first flotilla, and they were given sandwiches. And the worst thing that happened to them was that there was some ABBA music played. That's what we've actually seen as evidence. So until I see any firm evidence, I mean, there was a photograph of her with a suitcase that had Greta and a word I probably can't say on television, but means someone who solicits for sex on the street, that she alleges Israel called her. And I just do not buy it for a second, you know, because it's so juvenile. They don't need to do that. She's making enough of a fool of herself.
Well, she said that about her suitcase as well, that was written on her suitcase, as well as a male genitalia, as well as an Israeli flag. So I know when you hear these sort of allegations and you think, well, Israel have come out and denied it all, but